Welcome or welcome back to Trail and Ultra Running Training. My name is Will Frantz, and I'm a running coach and a strength coach. And the whole goal of this podcast is to help you train a little better so we can have more fun out on the trails. Today, I'm coming back from crewing at I Am Tough, and wanted to talk a little bit about results and programming and planning and all sorts of stuff from the weekend. I expect this to be kind of short. I did not put a ton of prep into this, but there were some really good lessons, I think, from the weekend I would love to share kind of off the cuff before I have to go make up a ton of work. And if you like this information or appreciate it, please hit follow or subscribe or whatever, and share it with somebody. That'd be really great. If more people found it, I would really appreciate it. Anyway, today we're going to talk about you can't guarantee the outcome. I think is probably what I'm going to title this. First, just a quick comment on the the mess that is happening online in this community about Camille Herron. I don't have a ton to say on the matter, other than she's a professional athlete. A lot of them have egos. If you watch The Last Dance, that is really apparent. And the way it's manifesting for her is just I don't know. It's kind of like honestly watching The Last Dance and just seeing how much a lot of everything just ate at Michael Jordan. It's kind of how I feel here. She's really impressive. I've taken a ton of training theory from her, a lot of execution from her, and it just kind of sucks to see this particular manifestation of what is clearly shitty, something in her head just kind of sucks, right? And that's not a downside. We all have those things. And I saw someone online say it's not, disappointing or whatever, it's just kind of sad. And that's kind of how I feel to care enough about a Wikipedia article. Just kind of sucks. And I hope she finds what she's looking for, and that maybe we can give a person a break, even if it wasn't great. It wasn't great behavior, but it's clearly indicative of something that just isn't living well in her brain, right? So maybe let's give it a rest, and she's off all social media, and we'll just see what happens. But wild story though, just nuts. Anyway, this weekend was at I Am Tough. If you go there to crew somebody, I want to put this out the gate. You are going to probably be walking very far to aid stations. And I don't care. It's an ultra marathon. I actually got a run in the forest when I wasn't expecting to. I was mostly taking a weekend off for my ankle and just using it as a deload week. Because I don't plan deloads. Life just hands them to you. And in this case, it handed it to me in the form of crewing for somebody. But I will say that we planned to basically have the car at a lot of the aid stations, and that's how my athlete was set up with a lot of the gear. And there were a couple spots where I had to park a mile away on a very narrow dirt road where 200 other people were parked, and turnarounds were a mess, and just had to make off-the-cuff decisions about what he might need, shove them in a bag, and run up a trail to a trailhead. So be aware that if you're crewing I Am Tough, that's just the race. There's no service. You're really far away from your aid stations, from your crew points. It's beautiful. I want to be very clear, this is not a negative hit on the race. Super well run, super well organized. Everything's together. I would absolutely, if you want a hard mountain race that especially has kind of an old school feel, there's no online tracking, they're very specific that it's for the people there, all of that, it's awesome. I highly recommend you do it if that's the kind of experience you're looking for. A difficult mountain race where you just get to go and disappear into the mountains of Idaho for a long time. But if you're crewing it, just be aware that your setup should not be car-based. It should be maybe throw your stuff into a rucksack or organize or whatever. Thankfully, the person I was crewing is very organized, so it was a very easy, what we definitely need was super well picked. But things foot care or whatever. It was just a gamble, and I had to guess, and mostly did okay. But just be aware of that. If you're running I Am Tough, you might be moving really far up a trailhead. And also highly recommend the race. It was lovely. And brings me to results for the weekend. Didn't finish and posted this on my story. And the thing is, you just can't guarantee a result no matter how well trained you are. In this case, it wasn't a training thing. There's a plant in this mesa that started he said it was like right after the aid station 45th parallel, which would be 35-ish off memory, miles into the race, where there's a plant called either winter fat or lamb's tail that was blooming and seeding, and asthma just went off for like 35 miles. And I don't know if you've ever had an asthma attack, for those listening to this, but I have. And I really can't imagine running without being able to breathe for a 50K. He did really well, but paces were clearly dropping. We went from a sub 30 to timing out at like 82 miles. Super valiant effort. All of this just to say, like, legs felt really good part of the way, like most of the way into it. Training, you can only do so much. And that's why we do the race part of it a lot of the time, is to see how the training's going, but also because the result's not guaranteed. Because if the result were completely guaranteed, then a race probably wouldn't be necessary. Like, they still do the Tour de France, even though they've shown that you can predict a lot of the hill climbs and whatever by pure power to weight ratio. They still do the Tour. Like, it's not guaranteed. The result is never promised to you. You still have to go out there and put in the time and do the work and see what happens. And if that's what you're trying to go after, then you might not hit it sometimes, even if all of your training and your prep and your food and everything goes right. Even if things just really hit plan, there might be something that you just didn't even know existed that will come up. Or you might like step onto something that looks really flat and you end up with their ankle deep in leaves and you turn. Or you might step on a rock that looks completely stable and it just completely comes out from under you, right? Like, there are things that you can't fully prepare for, and you can do your best and you can be careful, but racing is not you have to go out and work and see what's going to happen. And that said, you never have to go run a race. You can put your training to a test. You can also take it, pardon me, really easy. We could take these shorter courses. You can go treat it as a really long jaunt in the woods. I was going to say walk, but you're probably going to have to run a little bit. But you can move at a 20-minute mile, 3-mile-an-hour pace for 30 hours and finish most 100-milers. And that is an impressive feat because it's just so far, right? It's a really far distance to complete. But if you're going to go race and try to set a time goal or really push it a little bit or see how fast you can hit these targets or whatever, then, or pick a big mountain race, right? 3 miles an hour is tough to hit on something like the Wasatch 100 or I Am Tough, where you're half the time you're climbing up a hill without really good footing, and you have to be moving at a snail's pace or else you're going to fall down and hurt yourself, right? So we have to be aware that when we work or go for big goals, that we can go in with as much prep and planning and whatever as possible, and we still might not get the outcome that we want. And this is one of the reasons why the work on the way there is so important. If you want to be happy with your training and really feel like it's worthwhile, then we should be happy with our training. We don't do the training necessarily because it will bring us this result. For some people, that might be the case. For some professional athletes, that's probably the case because they make a paycheck on it. But for most of us who aren't getting paid to do this or whatever, and like you get a belt buckle, and it's awesome, and you get this big like sense of achievement, but it is at most a like day and a half span of test for what was months of work. And if you hate the months of work, then there's not a lot that you're going to achieve in a weekend in order to counterbalance that. The training has to be the target if you're going to enjoy this sport. You have to want to go out and run and lift the weights and put in the time. You have to be willing to like put in the minimal amount of work to fuel and figure out what works for you from a hydration standpoint in order to be able to do the running stuff. We have to actually enjoy the training if you're going to enjoy the sport, because that's most of where your time is going to be spent. And even if your training goes completely to plan, you might still not get the end result you want. And that just means that puts even more importance on the daily, weekly work that we put in. The running, the like miles, the treadmill, the climbing the mountains, the prep, all this stuff. If you hate that part and all you want is a belt buckle or a test of something difficult, this is going to be a very difficult or like challenging thing for you to achieve, because not going to necessarily like appreciate it on a daily basis. It's just going to feel like a slog and a pain in the ass so that you can go get something that after you put in the day and a half is over. If we actually really like the day-to-day, or at the very least like appreciate what it brings to us from a like meaning or value or mental health or whatever standpoint, then the race can not have the desired outcome and still have meaning to you in a way that's really important. So remember, the next time we're doing something really hard or challenging or whatever, and we're training, we're going through all this work, that like that's the important part. The daily climbing of the mountains or the Bulgarian split squats or whatever it may be, that is the stuff that actually really affects your life on the day-to-day. And then the race is a good time to go out and test your fitness and spend some time in the woods and do something new and maybe meet some new people and like just spend time with like the community and like really put yourself to a test. Like if that's what you're looking for, a whole bunch of things we can achieve at races. But if the race is the only thing, then you're probably going to end up without a lot of inspiration or without a lot of like love for it, because that's not where you're going to spend most of your time. Most of your time is going to be spent week in and week out, running after work, running before work, putting in time, and just being there on a consistent daily basis. And if you don't like that part, then this might not be for you. You might want to find another sport or another activity that can get you what you're looking for that's actually enjoyable, or at the very least not hateful, because if the end goal is really what you're getting, then there's a very high likelihood that at some point you're going to be disappointed, because most people are going to DNF or like not hit their time goal or whatever. You cannot guarantee the outcome of a race or an effort or whatever it may be, an FKT, and you have to appreciate that the day-to-day is what's really going to matter. Anyway, that is enough of me rambling. Hope that delivered well. Hope you all have a great day and week and get some time out on the trails. I'm going to be back with another one of these later this week. Hopefully it'll be a little less rambly, since I might have actually done some prep and not been in the woods for a few days. So I hope you have a great rest of your day and go have some fun on the trails. Thank you again for listening to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Podcast. I can't tell you how much I appreciate it. Just a reminder, nothing you hear on this podcast is medical advice, and you should always speak with a medical professional before making changes to your training or your nutrition. If you enjoyed the podcast or found it helpful, please leave a rating or review. It tells the algorithm robots that people like it, and that means more people will hear it. Or even better, just share it with someone who you think would benefit. If you prefer a video version, head to the Trail and Ultra Running Training Group on Facebook, or check out the Mountain Goat Endurance Coaching YouTube channel. thank you again, and I hope you have a great next run.